Whenever a problematic champion is released, there's usually one of two outcomes that take place. The community either hates them at the beginning and for a length of time before mellowing out, such as what happened to Akali after her VGU, or vice versa. They don't pay too much attention to them initially, but through some kind of balance update or what have you, the champion grows into a very serious problem like what happened to King. It's exceedingly rare for someone to be hated on release and continuously hated up until now. At some point or another, they would fall off the radar or at the very least have a moment of peace. There's only one champion I can think of who pulled this off, Yuumi. The Magical Cat was released on May 14th, 2019. That actually surprised me when I saw that. I can't believe Yuumi has been out for almost 4 years now. Throughout that period, there has never been a point where players weren't trashing on her in some way, shape, or form. She's been one of the most frequent targets for buffs and nerfs for the entirety of her career, and even though she's gone through a few iterations, there hasn't been a single instance where players were content with her as a champion. Yuumi's despised so much that in virtually every poll or survey asking who you want to see taken out of the game, the answer is overwhelmingly her. While there's already been copious amounts of discussion surrounding her existence, after seeing the recent nerfs to her at the start of Season 13, I wanted to make a formal analysis on the problem with Yuumi's champion design, and why no matter what Riot tries to do, she will never be healthy for the game. Discussing how healthy a champion is to the game is the equivalent of opening Pandora's box a dozen times over, seeing as there's no objective and unbiased way to evaluate how someone feels to play and play against. Even more so in a player versus player game where the strength and effectiveness of a champion fluctuates constantly. Perhaps if we were to look at a PvE title with a static environment like Genshin Impact, we can form a colloquial agreement on whether X character has a good design or not, given there's no change in the equation. But that's all the more reason why it's simultaneously amazing and infuriating that such a vast majority of players deem Yuumi as reprehensible. I've even heard Yuumi mings themselves say she's a blight on the world, and anytime I see someone vouching for her existence, there's a high likelihood they're drinking the Kool-Aid or trolling to get a reaction. Even during the peak of some of the most aggravating champs like Viego, Aphelios, Akali, Yone, the level of hatred never reached an almost unanimous point. So what sets her design apart from her peers? Everyone has their own definition of what makes for a well-designed and/or healthy champion. For the sake of eliminating ambiguity, the way I like to see it goes like this. Every champion is measured based on 3 variables. The first is their win condition. What is their goal in every game? You can usually determine this by the class they belong to. The goal of a diver is to locate a priority target and pin them down for the rest of their team to wipe them out or dispatch them on their own. The goal of a catcher is to trap a mispositioned target for an easy kill. The goal of an artillery mage is to pressure enemies from a distance and provide cover fire. And then there are minor specifications from one champion to another. Between Juggernauts, Darius' win condition is to activate Noxian Might as soon as possible so he can get 5 stacks on everyone and pentakill them. Whereas Mordekaiser's win condition is to isolate a member of the enemy team to prevent them from exerting pressure against his team before rejoining the fight. A win condition can also come in the form of why you're playing the champion. For example, against an enemy team composed of champions who deal primarily physical damage and/or damage to basic attacks, Malphite and Rammus are a good choice. The second variable is the means of achieving that win condition. We know that every champion has a goal in mind. The next thing is to figure out how they can reach that goal. If Yorick's win condition is to split push and burn down towers, the means of achieving that is illustrated by his high auto attack damage through his Qs, his fast clear speed through his Mistwalkers and Maiden, and his amazing single target DPS. If Janna's win condition is to guard her team from enemy attack, the means of achieving that can be seen by her Tornado and ultimate disrupting enemy advance, along with the healing and shielding provided by her W and ultimate to amplify the survivability of her team. This is where half of the balance equation comes into play. Just because a champion's kit is designed around a specific win condition doesn't necessarily mean they will efficiently pull that off. You'll probably see this video a few weeks after I wrote the script, but for most of early Season 13 so far, Udyr's been tearing through top and jungle right now with over a 53% win rate in Diamond Plus. So his means of achieving his win condition, whatever that win condition is, I honestly don't know, is quite effective. Meanwhile, our kitty cat Yuumi is all the way at the bottom of the barrel, less than a 45% win rate at the moment, the lowest we've ever seen a champion without the balance team looking to buff them. Ideally, every champion should have a reasonable probability of achieving their goal. Of course, the easier it is for one champion to achieve their win condition, the harder it is for members of the enemy team to do the same, so you have to find that balance where both champions have an equal and fair opportunity. Which brings us to the third variable, the chance of being shut down by their opponent, or in other words, the means their opponent has to prevent them from reaching their win con. This is arguably more important than the second variable, especially in the context of a PvP game. In a single-player game like Pokemon, the chance of being shut down by your opponent comes in the form of enemy trainers, gym leaders, Elite Four, etc. The obstacles, if you will. In League, the obstacles are other players, who in turn also have their own win conditions. Say the goal of an ADC is to deal as much DPS to the enemy team as possible, then the Rammus trying to get his stubby little arms on them is a chance of being shut down. In any player vs player scenario, it's a dance of actions and reactions. If one player has a disproportionately higher equity in said dance, beyond the scope of natural counters like the aforementioned Rammus vs ADC example, that would be grounds for a problematic champion. Now that we've established the 3 variables governing how healthy a champion is, let's evaluate Yuumi. What's her win condition? As an enchanter, her focus is more on her team instead of the enemies. How does she support her team? Through augmentation. Her passive grants her a shield on her next basic attack that she can transfer to her companion. Her Q fires a projectile that damages her first target hit and slows them for a brief moment if the missile is in flight for at least a second. She can use that slow to make it easier to catch a fleeing opponent or to create some distance between them and her, by extension whoever she's attached to. Her W augments her companion by directly increasing their adaptive force and gaining a flat amount for herself. Prior to version 13.1b, Yuumi would give you 20% bonus AD or ability power, which is basically half a Rabadon's death cap tied to a basic ability. Her E augments her companion's survivability, combat strength, and tempo all at once, healing herself or her anchor, giving them bonus attack speed and movement speed for 3 seconds. So from her passive and basic abilities alone, Yuumi gives her companion a shield, a means of pursuit or escape, bonus attack damage or ability power, a heal, and bonus attack and movement speed. In other words, she's mostly stats. Final chapter provides area control for her team, but you get the idea. She's all about augmentation, forfeiting her own pressure to double down on making her team's pressure better. I suppose we also cover variable 2 as well. Of the enchanters, Yuumi offers the highest amount of stat boost for whoever she's trying to support. More than Janna, more than Lulu, more than Sona. Theoretically, she's also the only support in the game with infinite value. Since her W offers % adaptive force, she can attach herself to a Veigar with 1500 ability power and give him even more, while gaining more for herself, whereas Janna, for instance, can only give so much AD with her shield. Additionally, Yuumi also has the highest cast range out of all enchanters because she can attach herself to an allied champion, therefore move as fast as they do, whether it's 200 movement speed or 2000. Given she's untargetable while anchored onto someone, her durability is whatever her anchor's durability is, plus the healing and shielding she gives them, which is a very key point as we talk about variable number 3. The universal means of stopping an enchanter is to attack them first or isolate them from their team, either directly or indirectly. With most of, if not their entire kit being designed to support instead of fight, enchanters are very easy targets themselves. They have to very carefully skirt the line between buffing their teammates and not exposing themselves to enemy attack. Unfortunately for them, there's no Geneva Convention in League of Legends with the law making it a war crime to attack medics. Most players can and will attack enchanters at the earliest convenience. Moreover, enchanters are limited by their cast range. If one of their teammates is far away from them and they're being attacked, enchanters may not make it in time to support them. Of course, you could just deal more damage than enchanters can support, but assuming both have the same number of items and are the same level, it's very unlikely for one champion to deal enough damage to another to shred them 100 to 0 while an enchanter is supporting them. Towards the late game, a Soraka can heal you for over 1000 HP in half a second. Separating an enchanter from their teammate of choice can be achieved rather easily through catches like Blitzcrank or anyone with displacement attacks like Sett, K'Sante, and Lee Sin. As for attacking the enchanter first, you just have to figure out if you still have enough fighting strength to take on the ADC or whoever after killing the enchanter. Starting to notice anything? The 2 universal ways to shut down an enchanter, taking them out first or attacking their teammates while they're not around, are both impossible to do against Yuumi. You can't attack her first because she's untargetable, you have to kill her companion first. You also can't separate the 2 unless your name is Mordekaiser, nor can you expect the enemy carry to be stupid enough to go too far away from their support because she follows them around. This leaves you with only one option, to take the carry out first, and you have to pull that off against the support with the highest total stat boost among the entire enchanter class. To give you an indication just how difficult shutting down Yuumi is, even though she has like a 45% win rate in Diamond Plus, take a look at this on screen. Bear in mind, this is after she got absolutely gutted by nerfs in 13.1b. In Diamond Plus, her win rate goes up to roughly 55% around the 35-minute mark, which is give or take 5 items, maybe 6. Yuumi's power is directly tied to whoever she's supporting, so if there's a hyper carry like a Jax, Cassidy, Fiora, Kayn, etc., they become almost twice as strong with Yuumi attached to them. Taking them down on their own takes a concerted effort from multiple members of the opposing team already, let alone the myriad of stat boosts and utility provided by Yuumi. That's where the problem is. The only thing preventing enchanters from being the strongest class in the game is that they have to put themselves in the line of fire to support their team and stay within reach of whoever they're supporting. So when you have an enchanter who literally disregards the 2 only sources of counterplay for enchanters, it doesn't matter how weak Yuumi is because she's hyper consistent. She will always be within range to support a teammate and will never be vulnerable to attack. A frequent counter-argument in defense of Yuumi is that she's an all-or-nothing enchanter, as in she can only ever support one person at a time, and if she and her companion are alone and that companion dies, she goes down with the ship. Credit where credit is due, that's correct. A Lulu can use her W on one champion, her E on another, and her ultimate on a third person, letting her distribute her resources throughout her team as necessary, whereas Yuumi has to go all in on one person while leaving the others to fend for themselves. Furthermore, she's quite possibly the most worthless champion in the game when not attached to someone, so you basically are rewarded with an extra kill if you strike down her companion and she has no one else to bounce to. However, like I said, trying to stop an enchanter through brute force is like a Caitlyn trying to stop a Rammus. That's literally what enchanters are meant to do. Make it extremely difficult for you to take down the enemy carry, that's their job. I don't give a f if Caitlyn builds Kraken Slayer, Blade of the Ruined King, Lord Dominix, has Cutdown, Sudden Impact, Black Cleaver, all the tank shredding in the world. Rammus will still have the advantage since that's what Rammus is supposed to do. Trying to argue that Yuumi's a freebie if you kill her anchor is like trying to say, oh, if you survive a nuclear explosion you can throw 2 right back at them. That's assuming you can even survive a nuke in the first place. Here's the thing, Yuumi's win rate late game is 55% after she just received some of the harshest nerfs in the history of the game, after she got nerfed several times before that. That goes to show you how important the third variable is. A champion's viability has less to do with how strong they are and more to do with how easy it is to shut them down. The reason Mordekaiser still has a sub 50% win rate even though he was buffed like 20 times in a row is because it's really easy to cut him out. There's a universal blanket statement way of shutting him down. Yuumi does not have this, therefore it doesn't matter how low they make her numbers, she will always be overpowered. If that's the case, why don't they just gut her numbers to make her 30% win rate or 20? They can't for one simple reason, variable 2. Every champion, regardless of how much we love or hate them, should have an equal opportunity to succeed. Try as they might to make that as improbable as humanly possible, Yuumi is still entitled to a fair chance at winning games. Fortunately, since pro play has more agency and balance than solo queue, Riot is willing to screw over Yuumi's solo queue performance if it means she won't be as invasive in pro play. Now normally that's a bad thing, but I think in this case we can all agree that Yuumi deserves to be unplayable. Balance aside, Yuumi just isn't healthy for the game. She gets away with so many things that other enchanters cannot, so if you start playing League with Yuumi, you won't learn the game properly, and when forced onto another champion or autofilled to another role, the lack of fundamental understanding of the game will cause you to perform significantly worse than if you played any other support, and that applies to the inverse as well. Many players see Yuumi as an easy win, just attach to someone, take your hand off the mouse, and press E whenever it's off cooldown, when that alone isn't enough to make Yuumi effective. I'm not saying Yuumi's a brain-dead champion, she has her own challenges and mechanics you have to learn, but everyone's perception of Yuumi is that she is a brain-dead champion due to the fact that she ignores the 2 main forms of counterplay against enchanters. For all the crap I give overloaded freaks like Viego for example, at the very least, his base kit adheres to the rules of a skirmisher. He's mostly single target and short range, so you can kite him out or 2v1 him and get rid of him quickly. There's no other champion in the game who blatantly goes against the very design constraints Riot set for their own game. Like many others, I believe Yuumi should be deleted or completely redesigned, but the goal of this video was to try to explain things from a game design and game balance standpoint. The past 2 years gave us more than enough evidence for why someone like Yuumi cannot be allowed to exist in League in a healthy way. So that's gonna be it for today, hope you learned something new from this. Let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions for how they can rework Yuumi to retain her same feel without being so annoying to deal with. For now, if you enjoyed the video, it would be awesome if you could leave a like and subscribe. Also follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other discussion videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon in the next one. Take care.